The wolfsbane burned through her veins like liquid fire, but Mara's eyes snapped open anyway, impossibly, miraculously alive. The alpha standing over her bed stumbled backward, his face draining of color. "You survived," Harrison Blake whispered, his voice cracking with something between terror and wonder. "Only alphas can survive wolfsbane. What the hell are you?" But Mara couldn't answer. Because down the hall, her 6-year-old son Lucas was coding on an operating table, and the only man who could save him, the billionaire alpha king who'd claimed her as his mate just weeks ago, was staring at her like she'd just shattered every truth he thought he knew about the world. 3 weeks earlier, she'd been nothing. A wolfless maid. A rejected mate. A desperate mother with a dying child and no way to save him. Then Harrison Blake walked into her life with an offer that seemed too dangerous to accept: become his mate, and he'd find Lucas's father, the alpha whose bone marrow could heal her son. She never imagined Harrison himself might be that alpha. She never imagined the rogue who'd taken her 7 years ago in a haze of drugged confusion had actually been him. And she definitely never imagined that the birthmark on her back, the one she'd hidden her entire life, would mark her as the long-lost daughter of the most powerful alpha in the territory. Now Jennifer, her former tormentor, had just tried to murder her with wolfsbane. Her ex-mate Matthew was waging war to get her back. And Harrison was looking at her like she held the key to every secret he'd been trying to unlock. "Mommy!" Lucas's scream pierced through the hospital walls, his small body convulsing as machines shrieked their warnings. Mara's wolf surged to life inside her, not the broken, damaged thing that had died 7 years ago, but something else. Something white and ancient and powerful enough to make even Harrison Blake take a step back. "Save our son," she commanded, and for the first time in her life, her voice carried the unmistakable weight of alpha command. Harrison's eyes went wide. Then he smiled, that savage, dangerous smile that had earned him his reputation. "Our son," he repeated. "So you finally figured it out. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. Please hit that subscribe button right now and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now?" Mara had learned early in life that survival meant making herself small, invisible, forgettable. For 23 years, she'd scrubbed floors in the Red Moon Pack house, kept her head down, and asked for nothing. The other Omegas whispered that she was cursed, a wolfless orphan who'd appeared at their borders when she was 6 years old with no memory of where she'd come from. The pack had taken her in out of obligation, nothing more. She'd accepted that fate, even embraced it, until Lucas was born. Her son had changed everything. The moment the healers placed that tiny, screaming bundle in her arms, Mara had felt something shift inside her, a fierce, primal need to protect him that transcended her Omega status. Lucas was hers. Her family. Her purpose. She didn't care that she couldn't remember his father's face, only fragmented images from that terrible night 7 years ago. She didn't care that the pack scorned her for bearing a bastard rogue's child. Lucas was worth every whispered insult, every extra shift in the kitchens, every cold winter night when she'd given him her only blanket. But 6 months ago, Lucas had started getting sick. At first, it was just fatigue. Then the fevers came. Then the night he'd collapsed in her arms, his small body convulsing, his lips turning blue. The pack healer had examined him with growing horror before delivering the diagnosis that shattered Mara's world. Lucas had a rare blood disorder. Without a bone marrow transplant from his biological father, he wouldn't live to see his 7th birthday. That's when Alpha Matthew had made his offer. "Seduce Alpha Walter at the Alliance banquet," Matthew had said, his handsome face twisted with that cruel smile she'd come to know so well. "He's old, wealthy, and desperate for companionship. Make him fall for you, and I'll use my connections to find Lucas's father." Mara had wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed that Matthew was using her for something darker than he'd admitted. But what choice did she have? Lucas was dying. So she'd put on the dress Matthew's fiancée Jennifer had given her, too tight, too revealing, designed to humiliate rather than seduce. She'd walked into Alpha Walter's chambers with her heart pounding and her wolf completely silent inside her. Except the man waiting in that room hadn't been Walter at all. Harrison Blake had been lounging in the leather chair like a king on his throne, his silver eyes tracking her every movement with predatory intensity. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 30, and devastatingly handsome in a way that made her throat go dry. Dark hair, sharp jawline, and a presence that seemed to fill the entire room. "Who are you?" he'd asked, his voice like whiskey and smoke. "Mara," she'd whispered. "I'm a maid from the Red Moon Pack. They sent me to you as a gift." His eyes had darkened with something dangerous. Gift. Do you even know what that means? She'd known exactly what it meant. But before she could respond, Jennifer had burst through the door with half the pack behind her, screaming accusations about Mara trying to seduce Alpha Walter. Matthew had stood there looking smug, clearly orchestrating the whole humiliating scene. That's when Harrison had intervened. He'd silenced Jennifer with a single look, sent Matthew stumbling backward with barely concealed contempt, and ordered his beta Luke to lock Jennifer away until he could sort out the truth. Then he'd turned those mercurial silver eyes back to Mara. "Tell me about your son," he'd commanded. And goddess help her, she had. Something about Harrison Blake made her want to trust him, even though every survival instinct she'd honed over 23 years screamed that powerful alphas only brought pain. She'd told him about Lucas's illness, about her desperate search for his father, about Matthew's manipulation. Harrison had listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she'd finished, he'd made an offer that stunned her into silence. "Become my mate. Come to Black Flame territory with your son. I'll help you find Lucas's father and get him the medical treatment he needs." "Why?" Mara had asked, suspicious of generosity from men who held power over her. "What do you want in return?" His smile had been sharp as broken glass. "Revenge against your precious Alpha Matthew. You see, his father stole my mother when I was just a boy. Seduced her away from our pack, destroyed my family. Now Matthew's claiming you as some kind of prize? I'm going to take you from him. Simple as that." It should have made her refuse. Being used as a pawn in some alpha's vendetta was hardly better than Matthew's schemes. But Harrison had been honest about his motivations, which was more than Matthew had ever been. And Lucas was running out of time. "I'll go with you," she'd agreed. "But I need your word that you'll help me find Lucas's father, no matter what." "You have it." That had been 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of living in Harrison's massive estate in Black Flame territory, watching her son thrive under proper medical care, trying to navigate the complex dynamics of a pack that clearly wasn't sure what to make of their alpha's sudden mate. Harrison's sister Christine had been kind, teaching Mara how to use modern appliances she'd never been allowed to touch in the Red Moon Pack house. His beta Luke was efficient and professional, treating her with respect despite her Omega status. Even the pack doctor had been gentle with Lucas, marveling at the boy's resilience. But Harrison himself remained an enigma. Sometimes he was savage, the ruthless alpha who'd threatened to destroy Red Moon Pack when Jennifer had tried to frame Mara for theft. Other times, he was unexpectedly tender, staying up through the night when Lucas had nightmares, teaching the boy how to defend himself, looking at Mara like she was something precious rather than convenient. And then there were the moments when he'd look at Lucas with this strange expression, part wonder, part confusion, like he was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't quite make sense. "Does the kid always call random men daddy?" Luke had asked one afternoon after Lucas had cheerfully greeted Harrison that way for the 10th time. "He's never done it before," Mara had admitted, watching her son drag Harrison toward the garden. "I don't know why he's so attached to Alpha Harrison." Luke had given her an odd look. "You really don't see it?" The resemblance. Mara had studied Harrison and Lucas together, the same sharp jawline, the same intense gaze, the same way they both tilted their heads when they were thinking. Her heart had started pounding. "That's impossible," she'd whispered. Lucas's father was some rogue. I barely remember that night, but I know it wasn't. It couldn't have been. 7 years ago, Harrison attended a summit at the Moonstone Hotel, Luke had said carefully. Same hotel where you said you were that night. Same night, actually. He came back acting strange. Said he couldn't remember most of the evening. The implications had hit Mara like a physical blow. Could Harrison be Lucas's father? Had they been drugged together that night? Is that why Matthew had been so desperate to keep them apart? Why he'd orchestrated that humiliating scene at the banquet? But Harrison had never mentioned it. Never even hinted that Lucas might be his. Either he didn't know, or he was deliberately keeping it secret. Mara had spent the last 3 weeks watching them together, looking for proof that her suspicions were right. And the more she watched, the more certain she became. Lucas had alpha blood. The doctors had confirmed it when he'd survived an illness that should have killed an Omega child. Harrison was investigating the mysterious rogue from 7 years ago, but every lead came up empty. And there was something about the way Harrison looked at her sometimes, like he was remembering something just out of reach. Now, as Mara lay in her luxurious guest suite, so different from the servants' quarters she'd occupied her entire life, she touched the birthmark on her lower back. The crescent-shaped mark that the red moon pack had always told her meant nothing. But what if it meant everything? What if she wasn't just some cursed orphan? What if her memories before age 6 had been stolen rather than lost? What if Harrison wasn't the only one with secrets buried in the past? Her wolf Zoe stirred inside her, stronger than she'd been since that terrible night 7 years ago. Something's coming, Zoe whispered. Something that will change everything. Mara pulled the covers tighter around herself, thinking about Harrison's promise to help find Lucas's father. Thinking about Matthew's obsessive determination to get her back despite rejecting her as his mate. Thinking about the way her son's eyes lit up every time Harrison walked into a room. I know, Mara whispered back. I can feel it too. The hospital corridors smelled like antiseptic and fear. Mara ran through them with her heart in her throat, Christine's frantic phone call still echoing in her ears. Lucas collapsed. They're rushing him into emergency surgery. You need to come now. She burst through the pediatric ward doors to find Harrison already there, his face pale, his normally immaculate suit rumpled like he'd been running his hands through his hair. When he saw her, something flickered in his silver eyes, relief mixed with anguish. What happened? Mara gasped, reaching for him without thinking. Where's my son? He's in surgery. Harrison caught her hands, his grip steady even though she could feel him trembling. Dr. Wood says his condition deteriorated faster than expected. They're doing everything they can, but his voice cracked. Mara, he needs the transplant now. We can't wait any longer. The world tilted sideways. Mara had known Lucas was sick, but she'd thought they had months to find his father. Weeks at least. Not hours. Did you find him? She clutched Harrison's shirt, desperate. The rogue from 7 years ago did your investigation. No. The word came out harsh, pained. Every lead went nowhere. The hotel security footage from that night was mysteriously deleted. The rogue who claimed to be Lucas's father admitted Jennifer paid him to lie. It's like someone deliberately erased every trace of what really happened. Mara's legs gave out. Harrison caught her, pulling her against his chest as sobs tore from her throat. This couldn't be happening. Not to Lucas. Not to her brave, beautiful boy who'd never complained even when the pain made him cry at night. There has to be something we can do, she choked out. Please, Harrison. I'll do anything. Alpha. Dr. Wood emerged from the surgical suite, his expression grim. I need to speak with you both. They followed him into a private consultation room. Mara couldn't stop shaking. Harrison kept his arm around her waist, anchoring her to the present even as panic threatened to drag her under. Lucas is stable for now, Dr. Wood said carefully. But his body is rejecting the temporary treatments. Without a bone marrow transplant from his biological father within the next month, he won't survive. A month, Mara whispered. That's not enough time. There's something else. Dr. Wood pulled out a file, his hands unsteady. I've been running genetic tests on Lucas, trying to understand why he's survived this long when most children with his condition die within weeks of diagnosis. The results are extraordinary. He laid out a series of charts that meant nothing to Mara's untrained eyes. But Harrison went very still beside her. What am I looking at? Harrison asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Lucas has alpha genetics, Dr. Wood said. Not just alpha blood, I'm talking about bloodline markers that indicate he's descended from one of the most powerful alpha families in the region. That's the only reason he's alive right now. His body is fighting this disease with a strength that shouldn't be possible for a 6-year-old. Mara's mind reeled. But that's impossible. His father was just some rogue. No rogue could produce a child with this genetic profile, Dr. Wood interrupted gently. Lucas's father is an alpha. A powerful one. And finding him isn't just about saving Lucas's life anymore. It's about understanding who Lucas really is. The implications crashed over Mara like a tidal wave. If Lucas's father was a powerful alpha, then that night 7 years ago hadn't been some random encounter with a rogue. Someone had orchestrated it. Someone with resources and influence had made sure Mara ended up drugged and vulnerable. Matthew, she breathed. He did this. He's known all along. The door slammed open. Luke stood there, his face grim. Alpha, we have a problem. Alpha Matthew just showed up at our borders with an armed escort. He's demanding to see Mara. Says he has information about Lucas's father that we need to hear. Harrison's expression went arctic. Tell him if he sets one foot on my territory without permission, I'll consider it an act of war. He's claiming diplomatic immunity. Says he's here under direct orders from the Alliance Council to resolve the Mara situation before it destabilizes regional peace. The Mara situation? Mara felt fury burn through her grief. I'm not a situation. I'm a person. And Matthew doesn't get to use alliance politics too. He also brought someone with him, Luke continued, his jaw tight. A woman who claims to be Lucas's real mother. The world stopped. What? Mara lunged toward Luke, only Harrison's grip keeping her from violence. That's insane. I gave birth to Lucas. I raised him. How dare Matthew? The woman has documentation, Luke said grimly. Hospital records, witness statements, even a DNA test. She's claiming you kidnapped Lucas 6 years ago and has been pretending to be his mother ever since. That's a lie, Mara shouted. I was there when he was born. I have the records. I have. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. What records did she actually have? The Red Moon Pack had handled all of Lucas's medical care. She'd never questioned it, never thought to keep copies of anything because she'd trusted them. Goddess, she'd been such a fool. This is Matthew's revenge, Harrison said, his voice deadly calm. He's trying to take Lucas from you because he knows it's the one thing that will destroy you completely. Can he do that? Mara turned to him, terrified. Can he actually take my son? Not while I'm breathing. Harrison cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Listen to me, Mara. Lucas is your son. Nothing Matthew fabricates will change that. But we need to be smart about this. If he's involving the Alliance Council, he's building a case that goes beyond pack law. Then what do we do? Harrison's smile was sharp and dangerous. We beat him at his own game. Luke, set up a meeting with Matthew. I want it public in the Grand Hall, with witnesses from every major pack in the region. If he wants to make this political, we'll make it political. And the woman claiming to be Lucas's mother? Luke asked. Bring her too. Let's hear this fairy tale she's selling. Harrison turned back to Mara, his expression softening. But first, you're going to see your son. He's asking for you. They found Lucas in recovery, looking small and fragile in the hospital bed. But his eyes lit up when Mara entered, and he reached for her with the same trust he'd shown since the moment he was born. Mommy, he whispered. I had a dream. Daddy was there. He promised everything would be okay. Mara's throat closed. She looked at Harrison, who'd gone very still in the doorway. "Lucas, honey," she said carefully. "You keep calling Alpha Harrison Daddy. Why is that?" Lucas looked at her like she'd asked the silliest question in the world. "Because he is. I can smell it, Mommy. We have the same wolf scent." He turned to Harrison with absolute certainty. "You're my daddy, aren't you?" Harrison crossed the room in 3 strides. He knelt beside the bed, and for the first time since Mara had met him, she saw genuine fear in his eyes. "Kid," he said roughly, "what makes you so sure?" "My wolf told me," Lucas said simply. "She woke up yesterday and said our daddy found us. That we're safe now." He frowned. "Don't you remember making me?" Mara choked on something between a laugh and a sob. Harrison looked like he'd been struck by lightning. "The night at the Moonstone Hotel," Harrison said slowly, his eyes meeting Mara's across the bed. 7 years ago. You said you were drugged. That you couldn't remember clearly." "I remember feelings," Mara whispered. "I remember someone saying they couldn't get pregnant, that they'd been told it was impossible after an injury. I remember thinking it didn't matter, because I couldn't have children either. I'd never had a heat cycle, never shown any omega fertility signs. Dr. Wood said I was infertile after the war," Harrison continued, pieces clicking together. "Said the damage was too severe. But if we were both drugged that night, if someone wanted to make sure we—" "Jennifer," they said simultaneously. "She admitted to drugging you that night," Mara said, her mind racing. "She said she wanted to humiliate me, make me sleep with some rogue so Matthew would reject me completely. But what if the rogue was never real? What if she drugged us both and orchestrated everything to make sure we'd never know Lucas was mine?" Harrison finished. He looked at their son, his son, with wonder. "All this time, you've been right here." Lucas beamed. "See? I told you." "Mommy, can Daddy stay?" "Yeah," Mara whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy can stay." Harrison reached across the bed and took her hand. When their fingers interlocked, Mara felt something click into place, not just the bond of shared parenthood, but something deeper. The mate bond she'd felt stirring since the moment she'd met him blazed to full life, and from the shock in Harrison's eyes, he felt it too. "Mate," his wolf growled through his lips. "Mate," Zoe answered through hers. Outside the hospital room, Luke cleared his throat. "Alpha, the meeting with Matthew is set for tomorrow night. And there's something else. Alpha Walter just contacted me. He says he needs to speak with you and Mara urgently. Something about a birthmark and a missing daughter." Harrison's grip tightened on Mara's hand. "Looks like we've got more than one mystery to solve." "Together," Mara said firmly. "Together," Harrison agreed. They didn't know that Matthew was watching through the hospital window, his face twisted with rage and something darker. They didn't know that the woman claiming to be Lucas's mother was actually Jennifer's cousin, paid to lie. They didn't know that Alpha Walter was one revelation away from discovering Mara's true identity. All they knew was that their son was alive, the mate bond was real, and whatever came next, they'd face it as a family. But in the shadows, Jennifer smiled from her cell. Phase 1 had failed. But she had contingencies. And this time, Mara wouldn't survive. The Grand Hall of Black Flame territory had never held so many alphas at once. Mara stood beside Harrison on the raised platform, acutely aware of hundreds of eyes watching her every move. Pack leaders from across the region had answered Harrison's summons, drawn by the promise of political theater and the chance to witness the infamous Alpha Blake defend his mate against accusations. She wore the Luna necklace Harrison had given her, his mother Isabella's necklace, a symbol of her place at his side. But even with that weight of authority around her neck, she felt like the scared little maid who'd spent her life scrubbing floors. "Breathe," Harrison murmured, his hand finding hers beneath the table. "You're not alone anymore." "I know." Mara squeezed back, drawing strength from his presence. "But Matthew's going to try to destroy me in front of everyone." "What if? Then we destroy him first." The doors opened. Matthew Wilson strode in with the confidence of someone who believed he'd already won, his beta Tyler at his side. Behind them came a woman Mara had never seen before, mid-30s, expensively dressed, with the practiced expression of someone who'd been coached on exactly what to say. And bringing up the rear, looking smug and vindictive even in chains, was Jennifer. "What the hell is she doing here?" Mara hissed. "You sent her to the dark dungeon." Matthew pulled diplomatic strings to have her released as a witness, Luke explained grimly from his position behind their chairs. "Apparently her testimony is crucial to their case." Harrison's expression went glacial. "This should be entertaining." Alpha Walter rose from his seat in the gallery, his weathered face grave. "This council is convened to address Alpha Matthew Wilson's formal complaint against Alpha Harrison Blake regarding custody of the child known as Lucas. Matthew, present your case." Matthew stepped forward with theatrical flair. "Thank you, Alpha Walter. I come before this council not out of malice, but out of concern for an innocent child who's been caught in a web of deception." He gestured to the unknown woman. "This is Rebecca Stone. 6 years ago, she gave birth to a son at Moonstone General Hospital. That son was kidnapped from the nursery by a Red Moon Pack maid who'd recently suffered a miscarriage and was mentally unstable." Mara shot to her feet. "That's a lie. I gave birth to Lucas. I raised him from the moment he was born." "Can you prove that?" Matthew challenged. "Do you have birth certificates? Hospital records? Witness statements from the delivery?" Mara's mouth went dry. She'd never needed those things. The pack had handled everything, told her the records were filed properly, that she didn't need to worry about bureaucratic details. "The Red Moon Pack has all of Lucas's records," she said desperately. "They can verify." "Can they?" Matthew produced a folder with damning efficiency. "Because according to Red Moon Pack archives, there's no record of any Mara giving birth 6 years ago. In fact, there's no record of you being pregnant at all." The gallery erupted in whispers. Mara felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. "That's because you erased the records," Harrison snarled, rising to his full height. "You're manufacturing evidence to steal Mara's son because she rejected you as her mate." "I rejected her," Matthew corrected smoothly. "Because she's a wolfless Omega who had another man's bastard. But that's irrelevant to the current case. Rebecca, please tell the council your story." The woman stepped forward, her eyes downcast in a perfect imitation of grief. 6 years ago, I was young and unmarried when I discovered I was pregnant. The father was an alpha who didn't want the scandal, so I checked into Moonstone General under a false name to give birth quietly." Her voice cracked convincingly. "I loved my son from the moment I held him. But when I woke up after delivery, he was gone. The hospital said a maid had been seen in the nursery, a maid matching Mara's description. By the time they realized what happened, she'd vanished." "Show them the DNA test," Matthew prompted. Rebecca produced official-looking documents. "I spent years searching for my son. When I heard rumors about a child in Red Moon territory who matched his description, I had DNA collected discreetly. The results came back last month. Lucas is my biological son." The whispers turned to shouts. Mara felt her world crumbling. "That test is fabricated," Harrison declared. "Anyone can forge documents with enough money and motivation. Which is why I've brought an independent geneticist to verify the results," Matthew said, his smile sharp. "Dr. Chin, please present your findings." A stern-faced woman in a white coat approached the platform. "I've reviewed the DNA evidence submitted by Ms. Stone. Based on genetic markers, there's a 99.9% probability that she is biologically related to the child known as Lucas." Mara couldn't breathe. How was this possible? She'd carried Lucas for 9 months. She'd felt him moving inside her. She'd endured 16 hours of labor to bring him into this world. Unless she hadn't. The doubt crept in like poison. What if her memories were wrong? What if the trauma of that night with the rogue had damaged her mind more than she'd realized? What if she really had miscarried, then kidnapped another woman's child in her grief? "No," she whispered. No, I know Lucas is mine. I know it. Maternal delusion is common in cases of infant loss, Dr. Chen said with clinical detachment. The mind creates false memories to cope with trauma. Given Ms. Mara's history of mental instability, I'm not mentally unstable. You suffered severe psychological trauma 7 years ago, Matthew interjected, false sympathy dripping from every word. You were drugged, possibly assaulted, and then discovered you were pregnant. The shame, the pain, it would have been overwhelming for someone of your status. No one would blame you for breaking under that pressure. This is character assassination, Harrison growled. You're twisting facts to fit your narrative. I'm presenting evidence, Matthew countered. Evidence that suggests Lucas needs to be returned to his real mother before any more damage is done. And what about Lucas's opinion? Christine Blake stood from the gallery, her voice ringing with authority. He's 6 years old enough to know who his mother is. Why not ask him? Children can be manipulated, Rebecca said quickly, too quickly. Especially by someone who's been pretending to be their mother for years. Of course he'll defend her. He doesn't know any better. Then let's test it scientifically, Harrison said. Dr. Wood, you've been treating Lucas for months. What's your professional opinion? Dr. Wood rose slowly from his seat. I've observed the bond between Mara and Lucas extensively. It's genuine, deep, and consistent with a biological mother-child relationship. Furthermore, Lucas exhibits genetic markers that suggest alpha bloodline heritage, markers that don't match Ms. Stone's DNA profile at all. Unless his father was the alpha, Matthew suggested. Rebecca already explained the father wanted no involvement. An alpha's genetic contribution would explain Lucas's traits. It would, Dr. Wood agreed. But there's another possibility that no one's mentioned yet. He turned to Harrison with significant meaning. What if Lucas's father is right here in this room? The hall went silent. What are you implying? Alpha Walter demanded. I'm saying that Lucas's genetic markers are remarkably similar to another alpha I've treated extensively. Dr. Wood pulled out his own set of documents. I took the liberty of running a comparative DNA analysis. With Alpha Harrison's permission, of course. Harrison's expression was unreadable. Present your findings. There's a 99.99% probability that Alpha Harrison Blake is Lucas's biological father. The hall exploded. Matthew's face went white. Rebecca looked confused, clearly not prepared for this twist in her scripted performance. Jennifer lunged against her chains, screaming obscenities. And Mara felt everything click into place with devastating clarity. The night at the Moonstone Hotel, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Matthew, you arranged it. You drugged both of us, me and Harrison. You wanted to humiliate me with some rogue, but what you actually did was orchestrate the conception of Harrison's heir. That's insane, Matthew sputtered. Why would I? Because you're infertile, Harrison said flatly. Aren't you? I've heard the rumors. Your father's genetic legacy left you unable to produce heirs. So you've spent years trying to steal mine. Matthew's silence was damning. Jennifer, Mara turned to face the woman who'd tormented her for years. You helped him. You drugged us both that night, didn't you? But something went wrong. Instead of me sleeping with some random rogue, I ended up with Harrison. And when I got pregnant, Matthew couldn't claim the child as his because everyone knew we'd never. So he rejected you, Harrison finished, his voice deadly. Sent you away to raise my son in poverty while he searched for another way to steal an heir. And when that failed, he decided to just take Lucas outright. Prove it, Matthew challenged, but his bravado was cracking. You can't prove any of this conspiracy nonsense. Actually, we can, Luke said, stepping forward with a tablet. Jennifer's been very cooperative from her dungeon cell. Apparently 6 years of loyal service to you wasn't enough to buy her silence when facing life imprisonment. She gave us everything. The hotel records showing you booked both rooms that night. The receipts for the sedatives. Even recordings of you discussing the plan. He pressed play. Matthew's voice filled the hall, discussing with Tyler how to handle the Mara problem by making sure she'd be so thoroughly disgraced that Harrison would never want her even if he discovered Lucas's true parentage. The council members rose in outrage. Even Alpha Walter looked disgusted. "This is beneath even you, Matthew," Walter declared. "To drug and manipulate two people into conceiving a child, then try to steal that child through fabricated evidence. You've violated every sacred law of pack conduct." "And Miss Stone?" Harrison asked coldly. Rebecca had already started backing toward the exit. Luke's guards blocked her path. "Jennifer's cousin," Luke reported, "paid $50,000 to play the grieving mother." The DNA test was faked using samples Jennifer stole from Mara years ago. Mara felt like she might collapse from relief and rage in equal measure. Lucas was hers. She'd known it all along, but having it confirmed, having the conspiracy exposed. "Where's Lucas now?" she asked urgently. "If Matthew is desperate enough to try this, he's secure in the hospital wing with Dr. Wood's most trusted staff," Christine assured her. "No one gets near him without clearance." "Not good enough." Harrison turned to the council. "I'm invoking ancient pack law. Matthew Wilson attempted to steal my heir through fraud and manipulation. I challenge him for rights to both Mara and Lucas. Trial by combat, tomorrow at dawn." The hall erupted again. Trial by combat was rare, brutal, and binding. "You can't be serious," Matthew said, but fear flickered in his eyes. "Harrison, we're brothers." "You stopped being my brother the moment you touched what was mine," Harrison snarled. "Accept the challenge or be declared Omega Refuse and exiled from every pack in the Alliance." Matthew had no choice. "I accept." As the council dissolved into chaos, Harrison pulled Mara into his arms. She clung to him, shaking with adrenaline. "We have proof now," she whispered. "Lucas is safe. You're his father. We can finally." "Mommy." They turned to find Lucas running into the hall, Dr. Wood chasing after him with a panicked expression. "I'm sorry," Dr. Wood gasped. "He insisted on seeing you. Said you were in danger." Lucas threw himself into Mara's arms, his small body trembling. "Mommy, I had another dream. The bad lady with the needle is coming. She's going to hurt you." "What bad lady, sweetheart?" "I don't know her name. But she has silver hair and cold eyes, and she wants Daddy to be sad forever." Mara and Harrison exchanged looks. Jennifer had dark hair. Rebecca was blonde. "Who?" The lights went out. When they came back on 3 seconds later, Alpha Walter was on the ground, a knife protruding from his shoulder. And standing over him with blood on her hands was a woman Mara had never seen before, silver-haired, cold-eyed, exactly as Lucas had described. "Hello, Harrison," the woman said pleasantly. "Did you miss me, dear stepmother?" Harrison went absolutely still. "Veronica, you're supposed to be dead. And you were supposed to stay broken and alone," Veronica replied. "But then you had to go and find a mate. Have a son. Build yourself a happy little family." Her smile was poison. "We can't have that, can we? Not when I've worked so hard to make you suffer." She lunged toward Mara with supernatural speed. Harrison moved faster, intercepting her before she could strike. They crashed to the ground in a tangle of claws and fury. And in the chaos, Mara saw Matthew slipping toward the exit with Tyler, a satisfied smile on his face. They'd been played. All of them. This wasn't about custody or revenge or pack politics. This was about destroying Harrison Blake from the inside out. And the game had only just begun. Veronica Blake moved like death itself, fluid, precise, and utterly merciless. Harrison met her attack with equal savagery, his wolf rising to the surface as claws extended and eyes flashed gold. They tore through the grand hall like a tornado, shattering furniture and sending council members scrambling for cover. "Get Lucas out of here," Harrison roared at Mara. But Mara couldn't move. Because Veronica's words were still echoing in her mind, "Dear stepmother." Harrison had never mentioned a stepmother. He'd said his mother Isabella had died when he was young, that his father had been consumed by grief. She's lying. Christine grabbed Mara's arm, dragging her toward the exit with Lucas. Veronica was our father's mistress, not his wife. She's been obsessed with Harrison since we were children. They made it 3 steps before Veronica's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Run if you want, little Mara. But you should know the truth about that pretty birthmark on your back before you decide whose side you're on. Mara froze. How do you know about my birthmark? Veronica smiled, even as Harrison slammed her against a pillar hard enough to crack stone. Because I'm the one who gave it to you, sweetheart. Well, technically your real mother did. But I'm the one who recognized it for what it was, the mark of the White Wolf bloodline. The mark of Alpha Walter's lost daughter. The hall went silent despite the violence. Alpha Walter struggled to his feet, one hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. What did you just say? Oh, didn't you know? Veronica's laugh was unhinged. The little maid Harrison's been protecting is your precious lost daughter, Mara. The one you've been searching for all these years. The one whose mother Mary died trying to protect from me. You're insane, Harrison snarled, but his grip on Veronica loosened slightly. He turned to look at Mara with dawning horror. Mara, your birthmark. Show me. Harrison, this is clearly a distraction. Show me. With shaking hands, Mara turned and lifted the back of her shirt. The crescent-shaped mark gleamed silver in the lamplight, exactly like the one in the portrait of Mary that hung in Alpha Walter's estate. Sweet goddess, Walter whispered. Mara. My daughter. You've been alive all this time. Mara's mind reeled. No. I'm just an orphan. The Red Moon Pack found me wandering at their borders when I was 6. I don't remember anything before that. Because I made sure you wouldn't, Veronica said smugly. Wolfsbane poisoning in children causes permanent memory loss. I gave you just enough to erase your past without killing you. Then I dumped you far enough away that Walter would never find you. It was supposed to break him completely, losing both his mate and his heir in one night. You murdered my Mary. Walter's voice shook with rage. You poisoned my daughter. Why? Because you chose her over me. Veronica shrieked, her composure finally cracking. I loved you first, Walter. Before you met Mary, before you had your perfect little family. But you threw me away like garbage for that weak, pathetic white wolf. So I took everything from you. Your mate. Your daughter. Your legacy. Harrison's fist connected with her jaw, sending her sprawling. And then you came after my family too. Why? What did we ever do to you? Your mother Isabella rejected my brother for your father. Veronica spat blood. So I seduced your father, made him fall for me, destroyed your parents' marriage from the inside. I was so close to becoming the new Blake matriarch. But then you and Christine kept existing, kept being the perfect little heirs, and your father wouldn't fully commit to me. Her eyes went cold. So I arranged the accident that killed him. Made it look like grief over Isabella's death drove him to suicide. Christine's anguished cry pierced the air. You killed our father? And I've spent the last 15 years making sure Harrison would never know happiness, Veronica continued, clearly past caring about consequences now. I spread the rumors about his infertility. I made sure every woman who showed interest in him mysteriously lost interest. I even helped Matthew drug him and Mara that night, though I'll admit, I didn't anticipate them actually producing a child. That was inconvenient. Mara's world was spinning. You worked with Matthew? Matthew worked with me, Veronica corrected. The fool thought we were partners in revenge against the Blake family. He didn't realize I was using him to destroy Harrison from every angle. And when you survived the Wolfsbane I had Jennifer give you last month, I knew it was time to accelerate my plans. Because Mara has alpha blood, Dr. Wood said quietly from the corner where he'd been protecting Lucas. Only an alpha can survive Wolfsbane poisoning. Which means she really is Walter's daughter, the White Wolf heir everyone thought was dead. Walter crossed the hall in 3 strides and pulled Mara into his arms. Mara. My little girl. I never stopped looking for you. Never stopped believing you were alive. Mara stood frozen in her father's embrace, unable to process the enormity of what she'd just learned. She wasn't just some orphan maid. She was Mara Walter, daughter of the most powerful alpha in the Alliance. The White Wolf bloodline everyone had thought extinct still ran in her veins. And Lucas carried not just Harrison's alpha genetics, but hers as well. He was double alpha-blooded, descended from two of the most powerful families in the region. "Mommy?" Lucas's small voice broke through her shock. "Are you okay?" She pulled back from Walter and knelt beside her son, touching his face with trembling hands. "I'm okay, baby. I'm just learning a lot of new things about our family. Does this mean the old man is my grandpa?" Lucas looked at Walter with interest. "Because that would be cool. He looks rich." Despite everything, Walter laughed, a broken, joyful sound. "Yes, little one. I'm your grandfather. And I'm going to make sure you have everything I couldn't give your mother." "That's very touching," Veronica said. "But you're all forgetting something important. I didn't come here alone." The windows exploded inward. Rogues poured through the shattered glass, dozens of them, their eyes wild and their movements coordinated. This wasn't a random attack. This was a planned assault. "Did you really think Matthew's custody challenge was the real play?" Veronica smiled as her rogues surrounded the hall. "This was always about getting all of you in one place. Harrison, Walter, Mara, the precious heir Lucas, everyone I need to destroy in one convenient location." Harrison moved to Mara's side, his body a shield between her and the rogues. "Luke, get everyone out of here. Now." "There's nowhere to run," Veronica gestured, and the rogues closed in. "I've had months to plan this. Every exit is blocked. Every escape route cut off. You're all going to die here tonight, and then I'll finally have what I deserve, control of both the Blake and Walter territories. The Alliance will be mine." "You're mad," Walter said, his alpha power rising despite his injury. "Even if you kill us all, the other alphas will never accept you. They will when I present them with Matthew as my puppet husband. He'll be so grateful I helped him survive this terrible tragedy, so devastated by his brother's death that he'll do whatever I say. And with the Blake and Walter fortunes combined, I'll be untouchable." Mara felt her wolf Zoe surge to the surface with unprecedented strength. The white wolf power her mother had passed down awakened fully for the first time in her life, and suddenly the room was bathed in silver light. "You made one mistake, Veronica," Mara said, her voice resonating with alpha command she'd never known she possessed. "You assumed I was still that scared little girl you poisoned all those years ago. You assumed I was weak." Her transformation was instantaneous and breathtaking. Where Mara had stood, a massive white wolf now towered larger than any alpha wolf in the room, her fur gleaming like moonlight, her eyes blazing with ancient power. The rogues stumbled backward in fear. Even Veronica looked shaken. The white wolf, Walter, breathed in awe. "Just like your mother. Mara, you're magnificent." Harrison shifted beside her, a huge black wolf with silver eyes, matching her size and power. Together they looked like the moon and the night sky given form. "Lucas, stay behind Grandpa." Mara's voice came out as a growl. "Mommy and Daddy have to deal with some bad people." "Okay, Mommy." Lucas didn't sound scared at all. "Make them sorry." What followed was carnage. Harrison and Mara moved as one, their mate bond translating into perfect synchronization. Where he struck high, she struck low. Where she defended, he attacked. The rogues didn't stand a chance against the combined might of the Blake and Walter bloodlines. Veronica tried to escape in the confusion, but Christine was waiting. Harrison's sister might not have alpha blood, but she had 15 years of rage fueling her as she tackled Veronica to the ground. "This is for my father," Christine snarled, her claws at Veronica's throat. "For my mother. For every lie you told and every life you destroyed." "Do it," Veronica taunted. "Kill me. Become just like me." "No." Harrison's voice stopped Christine before she could strike. He'd shifted back to human form, standing over them with Mara at his side. She doesn't get the mercy of a quick death. She gets to stand trial for every crime she's committed, every murder, every betrayal. And then she gets to spend the rest of her miserable life in the dark dungeon, knowing she failed. Luke and his guards dragged Veronica away, her screams of fury echoing through the hall. The surviving rogues surrendered or fled. And finally, the violence ended. Mara collapsed against Harrison, her white wolf form melting back into her human shape. He caught her, cradling her against his chest as the adrenaline faded and exhaustion hit. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "You're safe. Lucas is safe." "My daughter," Walter approached slowly, reverently. "May I?" Mara nodded, and Walter wrapped them both in his arms. 20 years of searching, 20 years of grief, finally resolved in this moment of reunion. "I have so many questions," Mara whispered. "About my mother, about my childhood, about why I have these powers. And I'll answer every one," Walter promised. "But first, let's get you and Lucas checked by the doctors. You both just survived a battle, and I want to make sure my family is healthy." "Family," Mara repeated, the word feeling strange and wonderful on her tongue. "I have a family now." "You've always had a family," Harrison corrected, tilting her chin up to meet his eyes. "Me and Lucas. But now it's bigger. Stronger." "And Matthew?" Mara asked quietly. "He escaped in the chaos. He's still out there." Harrison's expression went dark. "He won't get far. I've got people tracking him. And when I find him, we're going to finish this. Tomorrow at dawn, just like I promised. Trial by combat." But the council saw what Veronica did. They know Matthew is working with her. Won't they just exile him? "Exile isn't enough," Harrison said flatly. "He drugged us. Used us. Tried to steal our son. He needs to face alpha justice." Mara understood. In the wolf world, some crimes could only be answered with blood. "Then we face him together," she said firmly. "All of us. As a family." Lucas chose that moment to crash into them, wrapping his small arms around both their legs. "Did we win? Are the bad guys gone?" "Most of them." Harrison ruffled his son's hair. "How are you feeling, kid?" "That was pretty scary." "Nah," Lucas grinned. "I knew Mommy and Daddy would protect me. You guys were awesome. Mommy, you were this huge white wolf, and Daddy, you were this huge black wolf, and together you were like justice wolves." "Despite everything," Mara laughed. "Justice wolves." "Yeah, like superheroes, but better because you're real and you're mine." Walter watched them with tears in his eyes. "Mary would have loved this. Seeing our daughter with her mate and our grandson. She'd be so proud of the woman you've become, H. Mara." "Mara," she said gently. "I know I'm H. Mara Walter by birth, but I've been Mara for 20 years. That's who I am now. Then Mara Walter you shall be, Walter accepted. The daughter of my heart, if not my naming." Christine approached, her clothes torn and bloody, but her expression victorious. "The council members who survived are requesting an emergency session. They want to formally recognize Mara as your heir and discuss Matthew's treason charges." "Let them wait until morning," Harrison said. "My mate needs rest. My son needs to be checked by doctors. And I need to make sure my family is secure before I deal with politics." "Actually," Dr. Wood interjected, "I need to discuss Lucas's surgery. Now that we know Harrison is his father, we can proceed with the bone marrow transplant. But given everything that's happened tonight, I recommend waiting until—" "No," Lucas said firmly. Everyone turned to stare at the 6-year-old. "Dr. Wood, you said I might not have much time, right? That I need the surgery soon?" "Well, yes, but—" "Then let's do it now. While Daddy's here, while Mommy's here, while Grandpa's here. I want to get better so I can learn to be a justice wolf too." Mara's heart broke and soared simultaneously. "Sweetheart, you don't have to rush." "I want to, Mommy. I'm not scared. Not anymore. Because I know who I am now. I'm Lucas Blakewalter, son of 2 alphas, and I'm brave." Harrison knelt beside his son, his eyes suspiciously bright. You're the bravest person I've ever met, Lucas. If you're sure about this, then we'll be right there with you. Every step of the way. I'm sure, Daddy. Dr. Wood nodded slowly. Then let's get you prepped for surgery. Alpha Harrison, I'll need you to provide the bone marrow sample. This will be painful, but... I don't care about pain, Harrison said. Just save my son. As they prepared to move Lucas to the medical wing, Mara caught Harrison's hand. After this is over. After Lucas is healed and Matthew is dealt with and Veronica is locked away forever. What happens to us? Harrison pulled her close, ignoring the dozens of witnesses around them. We get married. Properly. With a full alpha ceremony. You become my Luna. I become your mate before the goddess and every pack in the alliance. And we raise our son together, the way we should have been doing all along. That sounds perfect, Mara whispered. Oh, and we're going to have more kids, Harrison added with a slight smile. Lots more. I spent 7 years thinking I couldn't have children, and now that I know I can, I plan to make up for lost time. Mara laughed despite the tears streaming down her face. How many is lots? At least 5. Maybe 10. I want the Black Flame territory filled with little Justice Wolves. You're impossible. You love me anyway. I really do, Mara admitted. Even though you're arrogant and controlling and... He kissed her, deep and claiming, in front of the entire assembly. When they finally broke apart, Mara was dizzy. And you're mine, Harrison finished. My mate. My Luna. The mother of my children. Nothing Matthew or Veronica or anyone else does will ever change that. Nothing, Mara agreed. They walked toward the medical wing together, their son between them holding both their hands, Alpha Walter following with pride in his eyes, Christine and Luke guarding their backs. For the first time in her life, Mara felt like she belonged somewhere. Not as a maid or an Omega or even just a mother, but as herself. Mara Walter Blake. White Wolf Alpha. Harrison's mate. Lucas's mother. Walter's daughter. She was home. But in the shadows beyond Black Flame territory, Matthew Wilson was making a phone call to the one person who could still help him destroy everything Harrison loved. And that person was already on their way. The real battle hadn't even begun. The surgery took 6 hours. Mara sat in the waiting room with Harrison's hand gripped tightly in hers, watching the clock tick by with agonizing slowness. Walter paced like a caged animal, his alpha instincts demanding action, but finding none to take. Christine brought coffee that no one drank. When Dr. Wood finally emerged from the operating room, his expression was carefully neutral. The surgery went well, he said, and Mara felt like she could breathe again. The bone marrow transplant was successful. Harrison's genetic material is already integrating with Lucas's system. If there are no complications in the next 48 hours, he should make a full recovery. Can we see him? Mara asked. He's in recovery. Still sedated. But yes, you can sit with him. They found Lucas looking small and fragile in the hospital bed, IVs in his arms and monitors beeping steadily. Mara sank into the chair beside him and took his hand, careful not to disturb the medical equipment. He's going to be okay, Harrison said, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself as much as her. He's strong. Like his mother. Like both his parents, Walter corrected from the doorway. The Blake and Walter bloodlines don't produce weak children. Lucas will survive this and grow into a formidable alpha. Mara wanted to believe them. But she'd spent 6 years watching Lucas suffer, 6 years fearing she'd lose him at any moment. Hope felt dangerous. You should rest, Christine suggested gently. You've been through hell tonight. Let me sit with Lucas for a while. I'm not leaving him. Mara, I said I'm not leaving. The words came out sharper than she'd intended. Mara took a breath, forcing calm. I'm sorry. I can't. Not yet. Harrison exchanged looks with Christine, then settled into the chair beside Mara. Then we stay together. All of us. They kept vigil through the night. Walter dozed in the corner, his alpha healing already closing the knife wound Veronica had given him. Christine curled up on the couch, exhausted from the battle. Luke posted guards outside and coordinated the cleanup of the grand hall. And Mara sat holding her son's hand, watching him breathe, praying to the moon goddess that this nightmare was finally ending. Dawn was breaking when Lucas's eyes fluttered open. "Mommy?" His voice was hoarse from the breathing tube. "Did it work?" "It worked, baby," Mara sobbed with relief. "You're going to be okay." "Told you I was brave." Lucas managed a weak smile. "Is Daddy here?" "Right here, kid." Harrison leaned in so Lucas could see him. "You did great. So proud of you. Can I have ice cream when I feel better?" "You can have all the ice cream in the territory," Harrison promised. Lucas's eyes drifted closed again, but this time it was peaceful sleep rather than sedation. Doctor Wood checked his vitals and nodded with satisfaction. "His body is accepting the transplant beautifully. I'd say we're past the worst of it." Mara finally let herself relax, sagging against Harrison's shoulder. "Thank the goddess." "Thank your mate," Walter said gruffly. "Harrison saved our grandson's life today." "Our grandson," Harrison repeated with a slight smile. "Going to take some getting used to, calling you family, Walter. Better get used to it fast. Because once Mara and I make our relationship official to the Alliance, you'll be my son-in-law. And I take family very seriously." It should have been a moment of peace, of triumph. They'd survived Veronica's attack, discovered Mara's true heritage, saved Lucas's life. The worst should have been behind them. But Luke's expression as he entered the recovery room told a different story. "Alpha," he said quietly. "We have a problem. Multiple problems, actually." Harrison stood carefully, not wanting to wake Lucas. "Report." "Matthews disappeared completely. We tracked him to the southern border, but then the trail went cold. It's like he vanished into thin air." "He had help," Walter said grimly. "Matthew doesn't have the skills to evade trackers on his own." "That's problem number 2, Luke continued. "We found evidence that Matthew's been in contact with the Rogue Council, the one that's been trying to overthrow the Alliance for years. They're offering him sanctuary in exchange for, well, we're not sure. But nothing good." "And problem 3? Harrison asked, though Mara could tell from his tone he already knew it would be bad. "The Alliance Council is in chaos. Half of them want to immediately recognize Mara as Walter's heir and formalize her position. The other half are claiming the whole thing is a blatant conspiracy to consolidate power. They're demanding genetic proof, historical verification, the whole bureaucratic nightmare." "We have the birthmark," Walter protested. "We have her white wolf manifestation. What more proof do they need?" "They're claiming it could be faked," Luke said apologetically. "That maybe Mara and Harrison orchestrated this whole thing to legitimize Lucas and secure both the Blake and Walter fortunes." Mara felt cold. "They think I'm lying about being your daughter?" "They think we're all lying," Christine said bitterly. "Because the alternative, accepting that Veronica manipulated the Alliance for 20 years, makes them look like fools. And powerful men hate looking like fools. So what do they want?" Harrison demanded. "A formal hearing. Full genetic testing. Witnesses from Mara's childhood. Documentation of Mary's death and Mara's disappearance. Basically, they want us to prove beyond any doubt that Mara is who we say she is." "That could take months," Walter said. "We don't have months. Matthew is out there planning goddess knows what, the Rogue Council is mobilizing, and there's problem 4, Luke interrupted reluctantly. "Someone leaked the story to the pack networks. By noon, every wolf in the territory will know about Mara's heritage, Lucas's parentage, and Veronica's crimes. The media is going to descend on us like locusts." Mara's head was spinning. "This is too much. I don't know how to be a public figure. I was a maid 3 weeks ago. I can't suddenly be the long-lost alpha daughter with cameras following my every move." "You won't have to do it alone," Harrison said firmly. But Mara could see the strain in his eyes. This was exactly the kind of political nightmare he'd been trying to avoid by keeping his personal life private. "There's one more thing," Luke said, and now he looked genuinely worried. "We found something in Veronica's belongings. A contract. With the Rogue Council." He laid out a document covered in legal terminology and signed in blood. Mara's blood went cold as she read it. "She sold them information," Harrison breathed. "About our security, our alliances, our weaknesses. Everything they'd need to launch a coordinated attack on the major packs." "When?" Walter demanded. "The next full moon. 3 days from now." The room went silent. "They're planning a war," Christine said what everyone was thinking. "A full-scale war against the Alliance. And they're going to use the chaos around Mara's revelation as cover. We need to warn the other alphas," Walter said. "Mobilize defenses. Prepare for—" "We can't," Luke interrupted. "If we reveal what we know, the Rogue Council will just move up their timeline. Right now they think Veronica's still in play, that we don't know about their plans. We have the element of surprise." "So, what do we do?" Mara asked. "Just wait for them to attack?" "We set a trap," Harrison said slowly, his strategic mind already working. "We use the Alliance hearing as bait. Gather all the major alphas in one place, just like they're expecting. But this time, we'll be ready for them." "That's incredibly dangerous," Walter protested. "If something goes wrong, if we do nothing, they attack anyway," Harrison countered. "At least this way we control the battlefield." "And Matthew?" Christine asked. "He's working with the Rogue Council. He'll know it's a trap." "Let him know." Harrison's smile was cold. "He wants to challenge me for Mara and Lucas? Fine. We'll settle it publicly in front of the entire Alliance. And when the rogues attack, he'll have to choose, fight with his people or side with the enemies trying to destroy everything our family's built." Mara listened to them plan, feeling increasingly disconnected from reality. This morning she'd been worried about Lucas's surgery. Now she was at the center of a political conspiracy that could reshape the entire Wolf Alliance. "I need air," she said abruptly, standing. I just need a minute." Harrison reached for her. "Mara, please. Just give me a minute to process all of this." She fled to the hospital balcony, gulping down the cool morning air. Below, black flame territory stretched out peaceful and unaware of the storm coming. In 3 days, it might be a battlefield. "You're scared," Zoe said gently in her mind. "That's allowed." "I'm terrified," Mara admitted. "What if I can't do this? What if I'm not strong enough to be who they need me to be? You survived wolfsbane poisoning as a child. You raised Lucas alone for 6 years with no support. You faced down Veronica in front of the entire Alliance. You're stronger than you think. But what if something happens to Lucas? Or Harrison? Or Walter? I just found my family. I can't lose them now." "Then we fight," Zoe said simply. "We fight with everything we have. That's what white wolves do. We protect our pack." Mara was about to respond when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, expecting Harrison. But it was Matthew who stood in the doorway, looking haggard and desperate. "Before you scream," he said quickly, hands raised. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to warn you." Mara's wolf surged, ready to attack. "You have 3 seconds to explain before I call the guards." "The Rogue Council isn't just planning an attack," Matthew said urgently. "They're planning an assassination. They want Harrison dead. They want Lucas dead. And they want you captured so they can force Walter to surrender his territory or watch them torture his daughter on live broadcast." Mara's blood turned to ice. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm many things, but I'm not a murderer of children," Matthew's voice cracked. "When I found out what they were really planning, what they wanted to do to Lucas, I couldn't. Mara, I know I've done terrible things. I rejected you, manipulated you, tried to steal he caught himself, tried to steal Harrison's son. But I never wanted Lucas hurt. Never wanted him dead." "Our son," Mara corrected coldly. "You said our son. What did you mean?" Matthew's face crumpled. "The night at the Moonstone Hotel. Veronica told me she was drugging you and some random alpha. She said it would humiliate you, make you worthless. But she lied. She drugged both you and Harrison because she wanted him to have an heir, then she wanted that heir taken away to destroy him. And I, goddess forgive me, I helped her. Why are you telling me this now? Because the Rogue Council wants to use me to get close to Harrison during the trial by combat. They're going to give me a poison blade. When I cut him, even if I lose the fight, he'll die within hours. And then they'll come for you and Lucas. Mara's mind raced. If you're really trying to help, why did you run? Why not tell us this before? I was scared, Matthew admitted. Scared of what Harrison would do to me. Scared of facing what I'd become. But then I heard about Lucas's surgery, about him almost dying, and I realized I can't let more innocent people suffer because of my cowardice. So, what do you want? Forgiveness? Because you're not getting it. I want you to survive, Matthew said. I want Lucas to grow up. I want to stop the rogues even if it costs me everything. Mara, I loved you once. Before the mate bond, before the rejection, when we were just kids in the pack. You were kind to me when no one else was. Let me do this one good thing before I face whatever punishment I deserve. Mara studied him, trying to see past the lies to any kernel of truth. Matthew had manipulated her, hurt her, tried to steal her son. But he'd also been manipulated himself by Veronica. And the desperation in his eyes seemed genuine. If you're lying, I'm not, Matthew swore. I'll submit to alpha truth binding if you want. Let Harrison or Walter compel the truth from me. But please, Mara, let me help stop this before everyone we care about dies. Before Mara could respond, Harrison burst onto the balcony, his wolf in his eyes and murder on his face. Get away from my mate, he snarled at Matthew. Harrison, wait. Mara put herself between them. He's here to help. He's here to finish what Veronica started. No, Matthew said firmly. I'm here to fix what I helped break. Brother, I know you have no reason to trust me. But I'm begging you, let me tell you what I know about the Rogue Council's plans. If I'm lying, kill me. If I'm telling the truth, let me help you stop them. Harrison looked at Mara. You believe him? I think we don't have a choice, Mara said. If there's even a chance he's telling the truth, we need to hear it. The brothers stared at each other across decades of pain and betrayal. Finally, Harrison nodded. Talk, he commanded. And if I sense even one lie, I'll rip your throat out with my bare hands. Matthew talked. And with every word, Mara realized their situation was so much worse than they'd thought. The rogues weren't just planning an attack. They were planning the complete destruction of the Wolf Alliance. And they'd been planning it for years. The war room of Black Flame territory had never held so many enemies turned reluctant allies. Matthew stood at one end of the table, flanked by Luke's guards, his expression haunted as he laid out everything he knew about the Rogue Council's plans. Harrison sat at the other end, radiating barely contained violence, while Mara stood between them, literally and figuratively trying to bridge the gap. Walter had joined them within the hour, along with Christine and the heads of 3 other major packs who Harrison trusted completely. They listened in growing horror as Matthew described the conspiracy. The Rogue Council has been infiltrating Alliance packs for 5 years, Matthew explained, pointing to a map covered in red markers. They've planted sympathizers in key positions, security details, medical staff, even some pack councils. When they give the signal during the Alliance hearing, these sleeper agents will activate simultaneously. Simultaneous attacks on multiple packs, Alpha David from the Northern Territories said grimly. That's an act of war, Alpha Sarah from the Coastal Pack finished. They're trying to destroy us from within. Not just destroy, Matthew corrected. Replace. The Rogue Council wants to dismantle the current Alliance structure and rebuild it under their control. They're promising freedom from Alpha rule, equality for Omegas, a complete restructuring of pack hierarchy. That doesn't sound entirely terrible, Christine muttered. It would be if they meant it, Walter said. But revolutions built on violence never end well. They'll just replace one tyranny with another. Exactly, Matthew agreed. I didn't understand that until I saw their real plans. They're not interested in equality. They want chaos. They want to burn down everything our ancestors built and rule over the ashes. And Veronica was helping them, Harrison said flatly. Why? What did she have to gain? Revenge, Matthew said simply. Against you, against Walter, against everyone she felt had wronged her. She didn't care about the Rogue Council's ideology. She just wanted to watch the world burn. Mara studied the map, her mind working through strategy in a way that surprised her. Maybe the White Wolf bloodline came with more than just physical power. These positions they've infiltrated, she said, pointing to several markers. They're all close to the Alliance Council chambers, where the hearing is supposed to take place. They're planning to trap everyone inside, Harrison realized. Turn the hearing into a massacre. Not everyone, Matthew said quietly. They want you dead, Harrison. They want the other major alphas dead. But Mara and Lucas? They want them alive. Hostages to force Walter's cooperation. Over my dead body, Walter growled. That's the plan, actually, Matthew said. They know you die before you let them hurt Mara. So they're going to make sure you watch them hurt her, use that to break you, and then kill you anyway. The room erupted in angry voices. Mara felt Harrison's hand find hers under the table, gripping tight enough to hurt. We cancel the hearing, Alpha David suggested. Scatter to our territories, fortify our defenses. They'll just hunt us down one by one, Alpha Sarah countered. We're stronger together. But if we're together, we're one target, Christine argued. Enough. Harrison's Alpha command silenced the room. We're not canceling anything. Matthew's right about one thing. They've been planning this for years. They have resources, intelligence, and patience. If we run now, they'll just wait us out and strike when we're vulnerable. So, what do you propose? Walter asked. Harrison looked at Mara. We give them exactly what they're expecting. A hearing. A trial by combat. A gathering of every major alpha in one place. His smile was predatory. But we make it our trap instead of theirs. How? Matthew asked. You're going to help us, Harrison said. You know their plans, their people, their signals. You're going to feed them false information while we prepare the real defense. They'll kill me if they find out I betrayed them. They'll kill you anyway, Harrison said bluntly. At least this way you die with some honor restored. Maybe. Matthew flinched but nodded. What do you need me to do? Over the next hour, they crafted a plan that was equal parts brilliant and insane. Matthew would return to the Rogue Council and tell them he'd successfully poisoned Harrison's blade for the combat trial. Meanwhile, Harrison's forces would quietly evacuate all non-combatants from the Alliance territory and replace them with trained warriors in disguise. When the rogues activated their sleeper agents, they'd find themselves facing not helpless civilians, but the combined might of the Alliance's best fighters. It's risky, Walter said. A lot of things could go wrong. Name one plan that couldn't, Harrison countered. Mara and Lucas's safety, Walter said immediately. If the rogues realize it's a trap before we've neutralized them, they'll go straight for my daughter and grandson. Which is why they won't be anywhere near the fighting, Harrison said firmly. No, Mara interrupted. Everyone turned to stare at her. I'm not hiding while everyone else fights. The rogues want me? Let them try to take me. I'm a White Wolf Alpha. I can defend myself. Absolutely not, Harrison and Walter said simultaneously. You're exhausted, Harrison continued. You've been through trauma. You just discovered your heritage. Lucas just had surgery. And I'm still stronger than half the wolves in this room, Mara shot back. I survived Veronica's wolfsbane. I survived 20 years of not knowing who I was. I can survive this. It's not about survival, Harrison said desperately. Mara, I just found you. I just found our son. I can't risk losing you. And I can't risk losing you, Mara countered. Harrison, they're planning to assassinate you during the trial by combat. Even if Matthew warns us about the poison blade, there will be other attempts. Other weapons. You need someone watching your back you can trust completely. That's what Luke is for. Luke can't fight at your side the way a mate can, Mara insisted. You know I'm right. The mate bond makes us stronger together. You've felt it. Harrison looked torn. Mara could see him warring between his protective instincts and his strategic mind. She has a point, Christine said reluctantly. The White Wolf power is legendary for a reason. If Mara fights beside you, it sends a message to the rogues that the Blake and Walter families are united. That they can't break us. And Lucas? Harrison asked. Goes to the safest bunker we have with Dr. Wood and my most trusted guards, Walter said. No one rogue or ally gets near my grandson without going through me first. Lucas won't like being separated from us, Mara said. Lucas will understand, Walter said firmly. He's a brave boy, but he's still recovering from surgery. We can't risk him in active combat. Mara nodded, hating it, but knowing he was right. Okay, but we tell him the truth. No lies about where we're going or why. He deserves honesty. They spent another hour refining the details. Matthew would leave before dawn, return to the Rogue Council with false intelligence. The Alliance hearing would proceed as scheduled in 3 days. Harrison and Mara would prepare for the trial by combat while secretly coordinating defensive positions. And if everything went according to plan, they'd expose the rogue conspiracy, eliminate the threat, and restore order to the Alliance. If things went wrong, they'd all be dead by sunset. One more thing, Matthew said as the meeting concluded. The Rogue Council has a leader. Someone who's been orchestrating everything from the shadows. I don't know who it is, they keep their identity secret even from their inner circle. But whoever it is, they're powerful, intelligent, and utterly ruthless. Any ideas? Harrison asked. Someone with a grudge against the Alliance. Someone who's been hurt by the pack system and wants to tear it down completely. Matthew hesitated. Someone who might have legitimate grievances even if their methods are evil. That doesn't narrow it down much, Luke muttered. No, Matthew agreed. But I'm working on it. Give me these 3 days, and I'll find out who's really pulling the strings. As the meeting dispersed, Mara found herself alone with Harrison on the war room balcony. The sun was rising over Black Flame territory, painting everything gold and crimson. Are you scared? She asked quietly. Terrified, Harrison admitted. Not of dying. I've faced death before. But of losing you. Of losing Lucas. Of failing everyone who's counting on me. You won't fail, Mara said with certainty she didn't entirely feel. We won't let you. How can you be so sure? Because I've seen you fight. I've seen you protect people. I've seen you save our son's life. Mara took his hand. You're not the savage, heartless alpha everyone thinks you are. You're a good man, Harrison Blake. And good men don't fail when it matters most. Harrison pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. I love you, he said into her hair. I know it's fast. I know we've barely had time to be together without crisis after crisis, but I love you, Mara. You and Lucas are my everything. I love you too, Mara whispered. And we're going to survive this. We're going to win. And then we're going to have that wedding you promised me, and fill this territory with justice wolves, and live happily ever after like Lucas deserves. Justice wolves, Harrison laughed despite everything. Our son has quite the imagination. He gets it from his father. They stood together watching the sunrise, stealing a moment of peace before the storm. Mara felt Zoe stirring in her mind, the White Wolf power humming through her veins. We're ready, Zoe said. Are we? Mara asked. We're a White Wolf, Mara. We were born ready. We just didn't know it yet. Back in the hospital wing, Lucas woke to find his grandfather sitting beside his bed. Grandpa, he said sleepily. Where's Mommy and Daddy? Planning how to keep you safe, Walter said gently. Lucas, I need to tell you something important. In a few days, there's going to be a fight. A big one. Your parents are going to be very busy making sure everyone stays safe. Are the bad people coming back? Yes, but we're ready for them this time. Lucas considered this with the seriousness only a 6-year-old could manage. Will Mommy and Daddy be okay? They're going to fight very hard to make sure everyone is okay, Walter said carefully. But you need to be brave too. You need to stay here where it's safe, even though you'll want to be with them. I'm always brave, Lucas said. That's what Justice Wolves do. Yes, it is, Walter smiled. Your mother told me about the Justice Wolves. It's a good name. Grandpa? Lucas asked after a moment. Do you think my other grandpa would be proud of me? Daddy's father. Walter's expression softened with pain. Your father's father died before you were born. But yes, I think he would be very proud. You have his strength, his courage. And Mommy's mother? My other grandma? She would love you so much, Walter said, his voice thick. Your grandmother Mary was the kindest, strongest woman I ever knew. You have her white wolf gift, Lucas. That makes you very special. I wish I could have met them. So do I, grandson. So do I. They sat together in comfortable silence, grandfather and grandson, both carrying the weight of family legacies they'd never asked for but would honor anyway. In 3 days, the Alliance would gather. In 3 days, the rogues would attack. In 3 days, everything would change. But tonight, for just a few more hours, they had peace. And sometimes, peace was enough. The Alliance Council chamber had been built to inspire awe-soaring ceilings, ancient stone walls carved with the histories of wolf packs dating back centuries, and a massive circular arena at its center where disputes were settled according to the old ways. Today, it would become a battlefield. Mara stood beside Harrison in the preparation chamber, watching him secure his armor. The trial by combat would be fought in wolf form, but tradition demanded they begin in human form, stripped to combat leathers that allowed for quick shifting. The blade Matthew warned us about, Luke said, entering with a cloth-wrapped bundle. We found it in the weapons cache exactly where he said it would be, coated with a paralytic poison that mimics natural fatigue. Harrison would have shifted back to human form mid-fight and been completely vulnerable. Harrison's jaw tightened. And Matthew, still embedded with the Rogue Council. He sent word an hour ago. They're moving into position. Everything's happening exactly as he predicted. Which makes me nervous, Christine said. What if this is all misdirection? What if the real attack is somewhere else? It's not, Mara said with certainty. She'd spent the last 3 days training with her White Wolf abilities, learning to sense pack bonds and hostile intentions. Right now, the arena above them practically vibrated with malicious energy. They're here. Dozens of them, hidden among the legitimate council members and guests. Can you identify them? Walter asked. He'd insisted on being present despite his shoulder injury, unwilling to let his daughter face danger without him. Not individually. But when the fighting starts, I'll know. Mara met Harrison's eyes. We stick to the plan. You fight Matthew in the arena. I watch the crowd. The moment the rogues reveal themselves, I signal our people. And if something goes wrong? Harrison asked. Then we improvise, Mara said with more confidence than she felt. We're good at that. A horn sounded, the call to the arena. Harrison pulled Mara close for one fierce kiss. Stay alive, he commanded. You too, she returned. Lucas needs both his parents. They'd said goodbye to their son that morning. Lucas had been brave, hugging them tight and promising to be good for Dr. Wood. But Mara had seen the fear in his eyes, the same fear that churned in her gut now. The arena was packed. Every major alpha in the Alliance sat in the elevated galleries, their betas and guards positioned behind them. Ordinary pack members filled the general seating. Thousands of wolves gathered to witness what they thought would be a simple trial by combat. They had no idea they were sitting in a trap. Mara took her place in the Blake family box beside Walter and Christine. From here, she could see the entire arena and, more importantly, she could see the faces in the crowd. Alpha Marcus from the Eastern Territory looked nervous, his eyes darting around like he was expecting an attack. Alpha Sarah sat with rigid control, but her beta kept touching his weapon. Even Alpha David seemed tense. They knew something was coming. Matthew had been smart enough to warn the alphas he trusted, give them a chance to prepare without alerting the rogues. The council speaker rose. We are gathered to witness trial by combat between Alpha Harrison Blake of Black Flame and Alpha Matthew Wilson of Red Moon. The dispute, rights to the woman Mara Walter and custody of the child Lucas Blake Walter. The crowd murmured at Mara's newly recognized surname. 3 days of genetic testing and historical verification had confirmed what her birthmark and White Wolf had already proven. She was Walter's daughter, the lost Mara everyone thought was dead. The terms, the speaker continued. Fought to first submission or death. The victor claims all disputed rights. The loser forfeits territory, title, and claim. Do both parties accept? I accept. Harrison's voice rang out clear and strong. I accept, Matthew said, and Mara could hear the tremor beneath his words. He was terrified. Good. He should be. Then let the combat begin. Harrison and Matthew circled each other in the arena center. The crowd fell silent, anticipating violence. Brother, Matthew said quietly, too low for most to hear. I'm sorry. For everything. Save your apologies, Harrison replied. Fight with honor or don't fight at all. They shifted simultaneously, Harrison into his massive black wolf, Matthew into a slightly smaller gray one. They clashed with brutal force, fangs and claws tearing at each other as the crowd roared approval. Mara watched them fight, but most of her attention was on the galleries. There, a guard whose hand kept moving to a concealed weapon. There, a supposed council member whose eyes tracked Harrison with calculating precision. There, a group of spectators who sat too close together, too ready to move. She touched the communication crystal Luke had given her, a subtle magical device that would signal their hidden forces. Not yet. They needed to wait until the rogues revealed themselves fully. In the arena, Harrison was dominating. Matthew fought well, but he was clearly holding back, trying to make the combat look real without actually trying to kill his brother. Harrison showed no such restraint. Every strike was genuine, years of betrayal and rage fueling his attacks. Matthew went down hard, Harrison's jaws at his throat. The crowd held its breath. Yield, Harrison snarled through his wolf form. I yield, Matthew gasped. It should have been over. But as Harrison released him, one of the guards in the gallery raised a crossbow and fired. Mara moved on instinct, her white wolf surging forth as she leaped from the box. She intercepted the bolt midair, her transformed body taking the hit meant for Harrison. The projectile bounced off her white fur. The white wolf's legendary durability was real. Chaos erupted. The rogues revealed themselves all at once, dozens of them drawing weapons and attacking the alphas around them. But Harrison's people were ready. The servants and guards they'd strategically placed throughout the arena shifted into combat formation, meeting the rogues head-on. Now, Mara signaled, and the reinforcements poured in. What followed was carnage. The rogues had numbers, but the alliance had strategy and the element of counter-surprise. Mara fought like a force of nature, her white wolf form larger and more powerful than any rogue could match. She tore through their lines, protecting the civilian pack members trying to flee while Harrison and the other alphas eliminated threats. The council speaker. Christine's voice cut through the noise. He's running. Mara's eyes tracked the movement. The speaker who'd announced the trial was fleeing toward a hidden exit, shedding his robes to reveal combat gear beneath. Not just a rogue sympathizer. Someone important. She gave chase. The speaker was fast, but Mara was faster. She cornered him in an antechamber, shifting back to human form to confront him. Who are you? She demanded. Who's leading the rogue council? He laughed, blood dripping from a wound on his temple. You think you've won? This was never about winning the fight. This was about the message. What message? That the alliance is weak. That your precious system can be infiltrated, manipulated, destroyed from within. His eyes gleamed with fanatic intensity. We've already won, Mara Walter. Because even if you kill every rogue here today, the seeds of doubt are planted. Alphas will never trust their own people again. The alliance will tear itself apart from paranoia. You're wrong, Mara said. We're stronger together than we ever were apart. You didn't prove we're weak. You proved we can survive anything when we unite. Naive child, he spat. You'll see. When the real leader reveals themselves. Harrison burst into the chamber, his human form covered in blood and dirt. Mara. The speaker used the distraction to draw a knife and lunge at Mara. She twisted away, but not fast enough. The blade caught her side, cutting deep. Harrison roared, his wolf erupting forth to tear the speaker's throat out before the man could strike again. The body hit the ground, the knife clattering away. Mara. Harrison shifted back, catching her as she stumbled. How bad? Not bad, Mara lied, pressing her hand to the wound. Blood seeped between her fingers. Did we win? Most of the rogues are dead or captured. Luke's securing the perimeter. Walter's coordinating with the other alphas too. He stopped as Mara's legs gave out. Mara. I'm fine, she insisted, but the world was tilting sideways. Just need a minute. The blade was poisoned, Harrison realized with horror, examining the fallen weapon. Different poison than the one they planned for me. This one's designed to kill white wolves, Mara finished, the truth hitting her. That's why he was running. He wasn't fleeing. He was luring me away from the others, so he could use the one weapon that could actually hurt me. Her white wolf heritage made her nearly invulnerable to normal attacks. But there were ancient poisons specifically designed to counter white wolf healing. Rare, expensive, and almost always fatal. No, Harrison gathered her into his arms. No, I'm not losing you. Not now. Not after everything. Harrison, Mara touched his face, surprised by how heavy her arm felt. Listen to me. You need to find their real leader. The speaker said. I don't care about the speaker. I care about you. Lucas needs you, Mara insisted. He needs at least one parent. Promise me you'll. Shut up, Harrison commanded, his voice breaking. You're not dying. I won't allow it. Luke. Get Dr. Wood now. But even as he shouted, Mara felt herself fading. The poison was working fast, shutting down her systems one by one. Her white wolf whimpered inside her mind. I'm sorry, Zoe, Mara thought. I'm sorry I couldn't protect us. You did protect us, Zoe replied. You protected our mate. Our son. Our pack. That's what white wolves do. We sacrifice. I don't want to sacrifice, Mara thought desperately. I want to live. I want to see Lucas grow up. I want to marry Harrison. I want. Her thoughts scattered as the poison reached her heart. The last thing she heard was Harrison screaming her name. Then darkness. But death, it turned out, was not the end for a white wolf. Mara found herself in a place between worlds, not quite alive, not quite dead. A vast silvery forest stretched endlessly in all directions, and standing among the trees was a woman who looked achingly familiar. Mother, Mara whispered. Mary Walters smiled, as beautiful and kind as the portraits had suggested. Hello, Mara. You've grown into such a strong woman. Am I dead? You're dying, Mary corrected. But the goddess has given you a choice. You can come with me now, find peace after all your suffering. Or you can go back and fight for your life, knowing the poison will leave you weakened, possibly damaged. That's not a choice, Mara said. My son needs me. My mate needs me. I know, Mary said gently. But going back won't be easy. The poison has damaged your white wolf essence. You may never be as powerful as you were. You may lose Zoe entirely. Mara's heart clenched. Losing her wolf again, after just rediscovering her? It was cruel beyond measure. But you'll live, Mary continued. You'll be able to raise Lucas, marry Harrison, build the life you deserve. Just not as a white wolf. Can I ask you something? Mara said. Why didn't you fight? When Veronica came for us, why didn't your white wolf save you? Mary's expression grew sad. Because I made the same choice I'm offering you now. Veronica had poisoned both of us, you and me. I could have saved myself and let you die, or I could have transferred my remaining white wolf essence to you and die myself. I chose you, Mara. I chose my daughter's life over my own. Tears streamed down Mara's face. You saved me. And now you get to save yourself, Mary said. Go back, my daughter. Live. Love. Be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. Will I see you again? When it's truly your time, yes. But not today. Mary kissed Mara's forehead, and warmth flooded through her. Tell your father I loved him until my last breath. And tell your son his grandmother is so very proud of him. I will, Mara promised. Then wake up, Mara. Wake up and live. Mara's eyes snapped open to find Dr. Wood, Harrison, and Walter all hovering over her. She was in the hospital wing, IVs in her arms, monitors beeping steadily. She's awake. Dr. Wood's relief was palpable. Mara, can you hear me? I can hear you, Mara croaked. Her throat felt like sandpaper. What happened? We almost lost you, Harrison said, gripping her hand like he'd never let go. The poison shut down your heart. Dr. Wood had to use white wolf blood from the Alliance archives to counteract it. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days. Mara struggled to sit up. Lucas is fine, Walter assured her quickly. Worried sick about you, but fine. We haven't told him how close we came to losing you. The battle? Mara asked. One, Harrison said. Most of the rogues were killed or captured. The survivors are being interrogated. We've identified and removed several sleeper agents from key positions. The Alliance is secure. And their leader? Harrison's expression darkened. Still unknown. The speaker died before he could reveal the identity. But we're not giving up. We'll find whoever orchestrated this. Dr. Wood cleared his throat. Mara, I need to examine your white wolf capabilities. The poison specifically targeted that aspect of your physiology. Can you try to shift? Mara reached for Zoe, felt for that vast well of white wolf power. It was gone. Or not gone, she realized. Diminished. Changed. Her wolf was still there, but smaller, quieter. More like a normal alpha wolf than the legendary white wolf she'd been. I can feel her, Mara said slowly. But she's different. Weaker. The poison damaged your white wolf essence, Dr. Wood explained gently. You'll still be able to shift, still have alpha abilities. But the white wolf's legendary invulnerability and power. I'm sorry, Mara. That may be permanently affected. Mara waited for despair to hit. Instead, she felt oddly peaceful. It's okay, she said, surprising everyone. I'm alive. I can be with my family. That's what matters. You're really okay with losing the white wolf? Harrison asked carefully. I never had it for most of my life, Mara pointed out. I survived 23 years without it. I can survive the rest. She squeezed his hand. Besides, I don't need legendary power. I just need to be strong enough to protect what's mine. And I am. Walter wiped his eyes. Your mother said something similar once. She said the white wolf was a gift, not a definition. That who we are matters more than what powers we wield. She was right, Mara said. And speaking of her, she wanted me to tell you she loved you until her last breath. Walter's composure cracked completely. You saw her? In the between place. She saved me, Mara said. Gave me a choice and helped me come back. I think part of her white wolf essence is what's keeping mine alive now, even diminished. They sat in silence for a moment, honoring Mary's sacrifice across the years. Can I see Lucas? Mara asked finally. He's been camped outside your door for 2 days, Christine said, poking her head in. I'll send him in. Lucas burst into the room like a small tornado, throwing himself onto the bed and into Mara's arms. Mommy, you're awake. I knew you'd be okay. I told everyone the goddess wouldn't take you away. Hey, baby, Mara held him tight, breathing in his scent. I'm sorry I scared you. It's okay, Lucas said magnanimously. Daddy explained that you were fighting poison and that you're really, really strong. Are you still strong, Mommy? Did the poison hurt your wolf? A little bit, Mara admitted. My wolf might not be as big and powerful as she was. Is that okay? Lucas looked at her like she'd asked the silliest question in the world. Mommy, you're still you. That's all that matters. You don't need to be big and powerful. You just need to be my mommy. Mara's heart swelled. When did you get so wise? I'm 6.5 now, Lucas said seriously. That's basically grown up. Harrison laughed, the sound rusty from stress, but genuine. 6.5. Practically ancient. Can we go home? Lucas asked. I miss my room and my toys, and Uncle Luke said he'd teach me how to track when you were better. Soon, Dr. Wood promised. Your mother needs a few more days of rest. But then yes, you can all go home. Home. Black Flame territory. The place that had transformed from Harrison's domain into their family's sanctuary in just a few short weeks. Actually, Harrison said slowly, I've been thinking about that. Mara, when you're fully recovered. I'd like to make this official. Official how? Mara asked, though her heart was already racing. Harrison dropped to one knee beside the hospital bed, pulling a ring from his pocket, a stunning band of silver with a moonstone that seemed to glow with inner light. Mara Walter Blake, he said formally. You are my mate, the mother of my son, the bravest woman I've ever known. You've turned my world upside down in the best possible way. Will you marry me? Not because of pack politics or alliances or bloodlines, but because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it. Yes, Mara said without hesitation. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Harrison slipped the ring onto her finger as Lucas cheered and Walter tried unsuccessfully to hide his tears. Finally, Christine called from the doorway where she'd been eavesdropping. I thought you'd never ask her properly. You knew about this? Mara asked. He's been carrying that ring around for a week, Christine grinned. Waiting for the right moment. Almost proposed while you were unconscious, but Luke pointed out that was creepy. It would have been romantic, Harrison protested. It would have been creepy, Luke confirmed from behind Christine. They all laughed, the kind of genuine, joyful laughter that comes after surviving something terrible together. When should we have the wedding? Walter asked. We'll need to coordinate with the Alliance schedule, ensure all the major packs can attend. Next week, Harrison said firmly. Everyone stared at him. Next week. Walter repeated. Harrison, that's not enough time to plan a proper alpha wedding. We'll need months too. I've waited 7 years to make Mara my mate officially, Harrison interrupted. I'm not waiting any longer. We'll do something simple. Just family and close friends. Save the big political ceremony for later if we have to, but I want to marry her as soon as she's well enough to stand. I can stand now, Mara offered. You absolutely cannot, Dr. Wood said firmly. 2 weeks then, Harrison compromised. Mara, is that okay with you? Mara looked at the man who'd gone from stranger to mate to the love of her life in a matter of weeks. Looked at their son, who was already planning what he'd wear to the wedding. Looked at her father, who'd spent 20 years searching for her. Looked at Christine and Luke, who'd become the siblings she'd never had. 2 weeks is perfect, she said. Outside the hospital, Matthew Wilson watched from the shadows. The trial by combat had ended in his defeat, but Harrison had surprised him by not demanding his execution. Instead, he'd been sentenced to 5 years of service to the Alliance, essentially probation to prove he could be trusted. It was more mercy than he deserved. But watching Harrison propose to Mara, seeing the family they'd built despite his attempts to destroy it, Matthew felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Maybe redemption was possible after all. He turned to leave and found himself face to face with a hooded figure. You failed, the figure said. But your failure has provided valuable information. Who are you? Matthew demanded. Are you the Rogue Council leader? I'm someone who understands that true change requires patience, the figure replied. The attack was always meant to fail. It was a test, to see who was loyal, who was weak, who could be manipulated. And now I know exactly where the Alliance's vulnerabilities are. I won't help you, Matthew said. I'm done with revenge. Are you? The figure's smile was audible even if their face remained hidden. We'll see. When Harrison and Mara are at their happiest, when they feel safest, that's when I'll strike. And you'll help me, Matthew Wilson. Because I know secrets about you that would destroy what little redemption you found. The figure disappeared into the shadows, leaving Matthew standing alone with dread pooling in his stomach. The war wasn't over. It had barely begun. But for tonight, in that hospital room, Mara and Harrison and Lucas were happy. And sometimes, happiness was worth fighting for, even if the fight would never truly end. 2 weeks later, Mara stood in front of a mirror wearing a wedding dress that had belonged to Harrison's mother Isabella. Christine had altered it to fit Mara's smaller frame, but the essence remained elegant white silk with silver embroidery that caught the light like moonbeams. The Luna necklace rested at her throat, and her hair was woven with white roses from Walter's garden. "You look just like your mother," Walter said from the doorway, his voice thick with emotion. "Mary would be so proud." "I wish she could be here," Mara said softly. "She is," Walter touched his chest. "In here. Always." A knock interrupted them. Christine entered with Lucas, who looked adorably serious in his miniature suit. "Mommy, you look like a princess," Lucas announced. "And you look like a prince," Mara said, kneeling to adjust his collar. "Are you ready for this? Once I marry Daddy, we'll officially be a family." "We're already a family," Lucas said matter-of-factly. "This is just the party to celebrate it." Mara laughed, pulling him into a hug. "You're absolutely right." "The guests are assembled," Christine reported. "Harrison's pacing at the altar like he thinks you might run away." "Never," Mara said firmly. They'd kept the wedding small as promised, just close friends and family in the Black Flame Territory Chapel. But even small for an alpha wedding meant 200 guests, including representatives from every major pack in the Alliance. The music began. Walter offered Mara his arm. "Ready, daughter?" "Ready, father." They walked down the aisle together, the daughter he'd thought lost forever and the father who'd never stopped searching. Guests stood and turned to watch, but Mara only had eyes for Harrison. He stood at the altar in formal alpha regalia, looking devastatingly handsome and completely overwhelmed. When their eyes met, his face transformed with such pure joy that Mara felt tears prick her eyes. Walter placed Mara's hand in Harrison's, then stepped back. "Took you long enough," Harrison whispered. "I was gone for 5 minutes," Mara whispered back. 5 minutes too long. The officiant began the ceremony, speaking the ancient words that would bind them not just as mates, but as partners before the goddess and the pack. Mara barely heard any of it. She was too focused on Harrison's hands holding hers, the way his thumb traced circles on her wrist, the love shining in his silver eyes. "Do you, Harrison Blake, take this woman as your mate and Luna?" the officiant asked. "I do," Harrison said firmly. "Now and forever." "And do you, Mara Walter, take this man as your mate and alpha?" "I do," Mara said. "With all my heart." "Then by the power vested in me by the Moon Goddess and the Alliance Council, I pronounce you mates and partners." "You may." Harrison didn't wait for permission. He pulled Mara into his arms and kissed her deeply while the guests erupted in cheers and applause. Lucas jumped up and down. "That's my mommy and daddy." When they finally broke apart, both breathless and smiling, the officiant cleared his throat. "As I was saying, I now present Alpha Harrison Blake and Luna Mara Blake Walter of the Black Flame Pack." The celebration that followed was everything a wedding should be: joyful, chaotic, and filled with love. Walter gave a speech about finding his daughter and gaining a son. Christine roasted Harrison with embarrassing childhood stories. Luke presented them with a survival guide to married life that was mostly blank pages with one line, "The Luna is always right." And Lucas, when asked to say a few words, simply said, "My mommy and daddy are justice wolves and I love them very much. Can we have cake now?" As the sun set and the dancing began, Mara found herself alone with Harrison on the balcony overlooking Black Flame Territory. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "Happier than I ever thought possible." Mara leaned back against him. A month ago, I was just a maid with a sick son and no hope. Now I'm a Luna with a family and a future. You were never just a maid, Harrison corrected. You were always extraordinary. The world just hadn't figured it out yet. Speaking of the world, Mara said carefully. Any news on the Rogue Council leader? Harrison tensed slightly. Matthew reported another contact. Whoever it is, they're patient and strategic. But we'll find them eventually. And when we do, we deal with them together, Harrison said. As mates. As partners. As a family. Mara turned in his arms to face him. No more secrets between us? No more secrets, Harrison promised. Though I do have one surprise left. What kind of surprise? Harrison grinned and led her back inside, navigating through the dancing guests to where Dr. Wood stood with an official-looking folder. What's this? Mara asked. Your wedding present, Harrison said. Dr. Wood, if you would? I've been researching white wolf genetics since Mara's injury, Dr. Wood explained. Trying to understand why her white wolf essence was damaged but not destroyed. And I discovered something fascinating in the ancient texts. He opened the folder to reveal a hand-drawn diagram of wolf bloodlines. The white wolf power isn't just genetic, Dr. Wood continued. It's also spiritual. Marrry transferred some of her essence to you when you were poisoned as a child, which is why you survived. And when you were poisoned again, you subconsciously transferred some of your essence to protect yourself. I don't understand, Mara said. The white wolf power can be passed down or shared between family members in times of need, Dr. Wood explained. Marrry shared hers with you. And you, well, you shared yours with Lucas. Mara's breath caught. Lucas has white wolf power? Not fully manifested yet, he's too young. But yes, the potential is there. As he grows and learns to access his wolf, he'll likely develop white wolf traits. Combined with Harrison's alpha bloodline, Lucas may become one of the most powerful wolves in generations. Our son, Harrison said quietly. A white wolf alpha. But there's more, Dr. Wood said, his eyes twinkling. The white wolf essence you shared with Lucas? It created a bond that's allowing your own power to slowly regenerate. It won't happen overnight, but in time, you may recover most of your white wolf abilities. Mara felt tears of joy streaming down her face. I'm going to get it back? With patience and training, yes. Harrison pulled her into a fierce embrace. You're going to be unstoppable. We're going to be unstoppable, Mara corrected. All of us together. As the celebration continued around them, Luke approached with a concerned expression. I hate to interrupt, but we have a situation, he said quietly. What kind of situation? Harrison asked. A messenger just arrived from the Eastern Territory. Alpha Marcus is dead, murdered in his sleep. And the assassin left a message carved into his chest. The revolution has begun. The joy drained from the balcony. Harrison's expression went hard. Everyone stays calm, he commanded. We don't panic the guests. Luke, increase security around the territory immediately. Christine, make sure Lucas is with trusted guards at all times. Walter. I'll contact the other alphas, Walter said grimly. Coordinate a response. On your wedding night? Mara protested. Harrison, we just got married. Which makes protecting you even more important, Harrison said. Whoever's leading the rogues, they're escalating. Attacking an alpha in his own home? That's a declaration of war. Then we respond as alphas do, Mara said, her Luna authority rising to match his. We protect our people. We defend our territory. And we hunt down whoever thinks they can destroy what we've built. Harrison looked at her with such pride and love that Mara's heart ached. My fierce Luna. Your partner, Mara corrected. In all things, Harrison agreed. They returned to the celebration, putting on smiles for their guests while silently preparing for the battles ahead. But when the dancing resumed and Harrison pulled Mara into his arms for their first dance as husband and wife, the worry faded for just a moment. I love you, Harrison murmured into her hair. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Together, Mara agreed. Lucas watched his parents dance, then tugged on his grandfather's sleeve. "Grandpa? Are the bad people coming back?" Walter looked at his grandson, this brave, brilliant child who'd already survived so much, and made a decision. "Yes," he said honestly. "But we're going to be ready this time. And you, Lucas, are going to learn everything you need to know to protect yourself and the people you love. Will you teach me?" "I will teach you everything your grandmother Mary taught me," Walter promised. About being an alpha, about white wolf power, about leading with strength and compassion. "You're going to be magnificent, grandson." "Like mommy and daddy?" "Better than both of them combined," Walter said with a smile. As the night wore on and the celebration finally wound down, Harrison and Mara slipped away to their private chambers. The bed was scattered with rose petals, candles flickered with warm light, and for the first time in weeks, they had privacy. "Alone at last," Harrison said, pulling Mara into his arms. Finally, Mara agreed, reaching up to kiss him. What followed was tender and passionate, the physical claiming of their mate bond combined with the emotional connection they'd built through crisis after crisis. They'd been through hell together, but they'd survived. And they would keep surviving no matter what came next. Hours later, wrapped in Harrison's arms with moonlight streaming through the windows, Mara felt completely at peace. "What are you thinking about?" Harrison asked sleepily. "How much my life has changed," Mara said. 6 weeks ago, I was nobody. Now I'm your Luna, Walter's daughter, mother to a future alpha. It's overwhelming." "You were never nobody," Harrison said firmly. "You were always exactly who you are now. The titles just finally match the woman." "I love you," Mara whispered. "I love you too," Harrison returned. "Now sleep. Tomorrow we start dealing with rogue assassins and political conspiracies. Tonight is just for us." Mara closed her eyes, feeling safe and loved for the first time in her life. In his protected chamber, Lucas slept peacefully, his white wolf essence already beginning to manifest in his dreams. In his office, Walter coordinated with alpha allies, preparing defenses against an enemy they couldn't yet see. And somewhere in the darkness, Matthew Wilson sat in his probationary quarters, staring at a message that had been slipped under his door. "Redemption requires sacrifice. Are you willing to pay the price?" The rogue council leader was making their move. But the Blake-Walter family was ready. Because they'd learned the most important lesson of all, love was worth fighting for. Family was worth protecting. And together, they were unstoppable. 6 months later, Mara stood in the same chapel where she'd married Harrison, this time watching with pride as the Alliance formally elected Harrison as president. Her white wolf abilities had returned almost completely, her training with Walter unlocking powers she'd never imagined. Lucas was thriving, showing early signs of the white wolf alpha hybrid power that would make him legendary someday. And the Rogue Council? They'd made their move 3 months ago, a coordinated attack that would have worked if the Blake-Walter family hadn't been ready. Matthew had proven his redemption by warning them in time, sacrificing his relationship with the Rogues to save the Alliance. He'd never be fully trusted, but he'd earned a chance to rebuild his life with honor. The rogue leader had escaped, but they'd decimated the Council's resources and exposed most of their operatives. It would take years for them to rebuild, and by then, the Alliance would be even stronger. As Harrison gave his acceptance speech, promising a new era of cooperation between packs, Mara held Lucas's hand and thought about how far they'd all come. From maid to Luna. From rejected to cherished. From alone to surrounded by family. "Mommy?" Lucas whispered. "Is this the happy ending?" Mara smiled, watching her mate command the attention of every alpha in the territory. "No, sweetheart," she said. "This is the happy beginning. Our story is just getting started." And it was. Because Mara Blake-Walter, the White Wolf Luna, had learned the most important truth of all. Happily ever after isn't a destination. It's a choice you make every day. To love. To fight. To protect. To be brave. To be a family. And Mara chose it all. every single day. Hey there, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for joining us on Mara, Harrison, and Lucas's incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We have so many more emotional, addictive werewolf romances coming your way. Drop a comment below telling me, what was your favorite moment in Mara's story?